Thank you. That way we can make it available. People come late, they can get caught up. All right. Well, welcome everybody. This is the mayor's managers meeting for February 7th. This is our Q1 2024 meeting. So for those who I haven't said Happy New Year to, Happy New Year, and thank you for joining us this morning. And we have the real honor and I think distinct privilege of having both Ed Chase and Kasey Denny giving us an update since we're halfway through session now on what's happening for us, and I might say to us up in Tallahassee. And I look forward to getting that update. And so with that, we'll go ahead and get started, let you all take control of the meeting, and we'll have time. It's up to you all if you want to do questions throughout or if you want to wait until the end. And then.
Kasey, well, good morning, everybody. So Kasey is on the glorious JetBlue flight, or is it JetBlue? Yeah, JetBlue flight to Tallahassee this morning to get back where she belongs. So I'll just give you a quick update, sort of a mid-session update. We gave the board a thorough mid-session update yesterday. That video is on the Palm Beach County BCC meeting video website. If you want to sort of sit through the whole half-hour thing, I'm not going to take a half hour. I'm just going to kind of give you the highlights of as Commissioner Weiss said, what's being done for us, but especially to us. One thing I will start off with this morning that I just got done watching. If you remember last year, we had the bill to end all preemptions, which was the bill that if a local ordinance has to go out, we have to do sort of kind of a economic outlook of who's going to be affected, and it gives basically anybody the right to sue us or you to basically stop that ordinance in its tracks while an expedited legal process takes place. So that bill was passed last year, and it only affected certain things. It exempted out a number of items. Well, that bill is back this year, and in the past, it exempted in all of growth policy, all of municipal planning, all of land development regulations, and development orders, permits and agreements. Well, so apparently there was a bad local actor over the past year. So this bill is back, even though last year was the bill to end all preemption. So this preemption is back. So they are now wanting to take out from those exemptions and just keep development orders, permits, and agreements exempted. So that means that now growth policy, municipal planning, and land development regulations are free, would be under this bill, fair game to be to have a lawsuit thrown at you or us during this process. So, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, in the Florida legislature, the House was the House and the Senate was the Senate, and the Senate was the more deliberative body and had adults kind of running the room, and the House was more reactionary. It's fine. I mean, that's the way that it was set up, and it's good. And here we are. I'm ranting, sorry, but here we are. In 2024, and the House is the House, and the Senate is the House, and we're missing adults, and we're missing deliberations, and kind of worthwhile debate on some of these issues. So sorry, I probably didn't need to watch that before I talked to you guys, but kind of that's where we are. So a couple things that are happening. Live Local glitch bill is going forward. So it does kind of bring back a few things. It's going to remove industrial property from the Live Local Act. That was a concern that we had. It's a concern that some municipalities had. We don't have enough industrial property as it is, so we didn't want that kind of in the framework there. So that's taken out, and they're still messing with the amount of mileage that is under the would be under the guidelines. So it's gone from a mile to a quarter mile and back to a mile. So you probably need to keep a close eye on that. I think that's on the Senate floor today. I think the Senate is in this morning, so that bill will be on the Senate floor. So we'll see how that is going to be, if it's going to be amended. The House really hasn't started on that. They're waiting for the Senate's lead, just like they did last year. So we'll kind of keep an eye on that. A number of bills that we're looking at, keeping a close eye on, is the sleeping in public places. That would certainly affect our municipalities there. That sort of just exploded, came out of nowhere on week one. I will tell you that the House sponsor on that is Sam Garrison. Sam Garrison is from Jacksonville. He is slated to be the speaker for 2 sessions from now. So that should tell you exactly where that bill is going and the success rate that is probably going to happen there. Some bills that the county is looking on, possession and use of a firearm in public places. We're hoping to see that move forward. It's not moving forward as quickly as we hoped. The discharging firearms in residential areas, that was a bill that came to us from some folks out in the western communities. That bill is progressing. It's on a very odd legal maneuver as to charging the bullet with trespassing if it leaves somebody's property. I'm not an attorney, but that makes my eyes spin backwards in my head. So we'll see how that works out. We're following the mobility and impact fee bill as that moves forward. There's a number of building permit bills that would which would call for expediting permitting process for us and for municipalities that do permitting and a shorter time frame. We've fought that shorter time frame over the past couple of years. We understand the effort there, but the timeframes that they're putting on, it started at 3 calendar days. Well, that's sorry, but that's a little ridiculous. If somebody files a permit on a Friday and Monday is President's Day, well, then we're done. So we're working with the sponsors, the League of Cities and the Association of Counties is working with the sponsor to try to make those at least reasonable so that we have a chance to succeed in helping them out there. Sovereign immunity is moving better than it has over the past couple of years. So obviously now our limits are $200,000 per person, $300,000 per event. So it looks like both the House and Senate are set to agree on a $400,000 and $600,000 limit. The question between the House and Senate now is whether there will be a yearly adjustment on that. If it's attached to the CPI, if it's attached to this, I think the House isn't interested in that. The Senate is, because the Senate doesn't want to come back and do this every 5 or 10 years. So we'll keep an eye on that, but that seems to be moving more strongly than it has in years past. The vacation rental bill is still bouncing back between the House and the Senate. It's still focused on kind of where it left off last year as to registration and making sure that there's a responsible party that the county or the local municipality can contact in case there are issues. The school boards were sort of the target last year of the legislature. This year, it's our friends in our special districts. So they are looking for independent special districts that have elections. They're looking for a 12-year term limit for those persons. In the initial bill for special districts, they talked about bringing every independent special district back for a voter reconfirmation every 10 years. They've since backed off on that, but they're still moving ahead on the term limits issue. The appropriation on appropriations, that both the House and Senate budgets came out over the past week and a half or so. If your municipality has an appropriation that's in either the House or the Senate, you are in play. So that's exactly where you need to be going forward. This just starts the process of conference between the House and Senate budget teams. But as long as you have a dollar figure in either the House or Senate budget, you have the possibility of moving ahead. So talk to your contract lobbyist and make sure that your sponsors, both in the House and Senate, are aware of your need and your support, and don't let them off the hook. This is the kind of time that they need to be working behind the scenes in the appropriations suite with staff and other members to make sure to get your budget item kept on the list as it goes forward through the process. We sort of did a top 10 list yesterday of kind of big picture issues that were coming into the session. So I'll just kind of hit on those. And one of those is one that Commissioner Weiss is close to his heart, and he's following very closely for us, is the artificial intelligence bills. There are three that are moving. One is sort of the main one that creates a Florida Technology Modernization Council that would recommend legislative action on AI issues, and that would evaluate sort of the common statewide standards for that. It's and I'm sure that the commissioner will not have said it's very vague, and I'm guessing it's done intentionally. We're trying to work with Congress to help them create a nationwide AI policy so that we don't have 50 floating around. But states like ours are going to go forward and do this. So we're kind of keeping a close eye on what that council is going to be allowed to do and kind of the definitions within that. The two other AI bills, one's on political advertising. So if you use AI in a political ad, you have to have a disclaimer that tells the public that is being used there. And then the defamation and false light bill. So that's kind of a very large bill, but it would basically prevent AI producers from presenting a deep fake or something that would present them in a false light. The other part of that is the defamation. So last year there was an effort to try to expand the defamation to make the press more accessible to lawsuit. So that is kind of back in this bill. So it's kind of weird to have both of those together. Because the defamation language is in this bill, that it's not going to go forward. The Senate has no interest in tackling that probably unconstitutional issue. So those are sort of our AI issues. Two property insurance bills that were brought up are not going anywhere this year. One would raise the citizens cap from $700,000 to $1 million. And the other was a bill that would allow insurers to offer policies with coverage that was just equal to the amount owed on the mortgages of that property. That the latter bill has not seen light of day in either House or Senate, so it's dead. The citizens bill has only been heard in the Senate and not the House. It's kind of there's a competing faction on citizens. Some people want, they want to clear out citizens and have fewer homes in there. This bill would kind of, would add more homes in. So there's kind of an internal fight on that property issue, but none of those seem to be moving ahead. Social media, so the age verification, making sure that 16-year-olds couldn't open or have a social media account. That's already passed the House. The bill number was HB1, so that told me early on it was going to pass the House without a problem. In the Senate, they're trying to change a few things and take out or allow 16-year-olds to have access to email, texting applications, certain social media platforms like LinkedIn or maybe Pinterest. So that's, they're getting into a dicey area there of picking kind of winners and losers that the House didn't really do. So we'll kind of see how that works out. The monuments and flag display. So the bill that would prohibit the removal of historical monuments and memorials and would declare any ordinance or municipal law that you have null and void and preempt all that to the state is moving ahead. It passed its second of third committees in the Senate yesterday, and it's in its second and third committee in the House. So I would expect that to move ahead. The governor has already said he supports that. So that is coming our way. The the display of flags, it would prohibit a local government or public school, university, from erecting or displaying a flag that represents a political viewpoint, including a politically partisan, racial, sexual orientation, gender, or political ideology viewpoint. So those are, I kind of lump those two together as preemptions against us. So the monuments bill is moving ahead. The flag bill has not been heard in the Senate yet. It's in the State Affairs Committee in the House. I don't think it has time to make it out of the Senate. I think they're focusing on the monument bill and not the flag bill. The employment of minors bill is already passed the House, so that would allow 16 and 17-year-olds to work a little bit more. The Senate has a little different idea on that. They want to make sure that 16 and 17-year-olds can only work 30 hours a week, whether it's a school week or not. So they'll have to work out the differences on that bill. Commissioner Weiss was very interested in this bill. This is a bill that would change the Florida state bird from the mockingbird to the American flamingo. So I know that they're very busy working on property insurance, but I'm hopefully they'll have time to take out to solve this crucial statewide question. It's not been heard in the House. I think it's only been heard once in the Senate, so it's not that's not moving along. There was a gambling bill early on pari-mutuel facilities. It didn't really affect Palm Beach County, but it affected Miami-Dade and Broward County. So if you had a gambling permit in your county that included slot machines, it would have allowed you to move 30 miles. So this was purely done for a Miami-Dade interest who wanted to move in kind of an inland casino type thing or a pari-mutuel facility to the coast, to Miami Beach. So that bill was never heard in the House. It was just about to be heard in the Senate, and just hours before that committee was to meet in the Senate, the bill got pulled. And it was because of two reasons. It was because the Speaker Renner in the House said, no, we're not going to hear that in the Senate, so or in the House, so that kind of killed that. And half the population of the city of Miami Beach was about to drive to Tallahassee to complain about this, because in the bill it basically had no way for the local municipality to prevent that. So it would have just allowed that to happen. So that bill is dead, and we'll see if it pops up in the future. Kind of the last one is the millage increase bill. So that bill is moving. So this would provide that it would take a 2/3 vote for a governing body of a county, municipality, or independent special district to raise or pass any millage rate that is an increase, except where a higher vote threshold is already required under current law. So this bill is it's in its second committee tomorrow in the Senate. It's in its last committee in the House. The sponsor of this bill is in House leadership, so I would expect this bill to move right along. So those are kind of things that we should be looking out for. On the last thing that I will mention is, Commissioner, we didn't really talk about this yesterday, but there's a ethics bill that's floating around that just got amended by the Senate a few days ago, that would remove the ability of any inspector general, any county inspector general, to initiate any investigation of an elected official. So what the Senate is saying is basically they want to preempt all of our countywide, or any county that has an inspector general, preempt all that to the state, and make it so that a person who files a complaint against an elected official has to have firsthand knowledge of that violation. So, it couldn't be me hearing something and then going to the Inspector General, which is the way that they hear about things now. Going to the Inspector General, hey, I heard this. Can you guys check it out and make sure, everything's up and up on that? So that would just be wiped away. All that would go to the state. So that's moving in the Senate, and we'll have to keep an eye on that in the House. Our Inspector General, our state attorney, we are kind of all on that issue. There are a few other counties that have Inspector Generals, so that we're kind of marshaling our forces against that. But that's, tomorrow is the exact midday of session. Today is the exact midday of session, Wednesday. So this is officially the opening day of shenanigans season in Tallahassee. Things pop up. Committee bills pop up that have never been heard anywhere else before. So it's the first couple of weeks of session, we kind of know what's going on. Now it's kind of, it takes a village and everyone's eyes to keep track of amendments and proposed committee bills that pop up. So our team is on it. I hope that your guys and your lobbyists or contract lobbyists are in regular contact, if not on a daily basis, on a couple of days a week, just making sure that they know what you need and you are getting the information and making sure that you're hearing what they hear in Tallahassee. So that's kind of where we are. That's our mid-session report. And if you have any questions, I'm fair, as you heard from my opening comment. I have no filter today, so we're ready to go.
Great. Well, thank you, Ed. We'll go ahead and open it up. Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know, unmute. Yeah, quick question. So let me get this correct. So if someone comes in to our commission, if this legislation goes through and someone comes in and makes a complaint against somebody and signs it, it will go to the state and it won't be investigated on our Commission on Ethics?
If this bill were to pass in its current form in the Senate, yeah. And if you were the person to make that complaint, you would have to prove that you have firsthand knowledge of the violation.
So what will our Commission on Ethics do if they can't take a signed complaint?
Well, if they allow them to remain, which, that would be step one, that would be a good thing. Then they would have to follow into the same process. They could only take a sworn complaint for someone with firsthand knowledge. If the bill passes in its current form, it kind of just eliminates that office from each county altogether, and it just goes to the state for investigation. They kind of did this. There's a similar bill regarding investigations on police officers and complaints against police officers. So there's a bill currently, it's not moving the way that they thought it would, but there was a bill that was proposed at the first part of the session that said all complaints against sworn officers could not be completed locally. It would have to be, all that investigation would be preempted to the state, and either the FDLE or some other state entity would be in charge of investigating every and all complaint against law enforcement officers.
Because I thought it was just self-initiated complaints. They couldn't self-initiate a complaint. They couldn't take a complaint if they saw something on media or Twitter, they couldn't take a complaint. They couldn't initiate it themselves. It's not quite clear to me about the preempting to the state, because our Commission on Ethics, I've disagreed with every executive director for more than a decade because they wanted to have anonymous complaints. And we don't agree to that. We agree that with the state, if you're going to wreck somebody's life, because some of these investigations go on for a long period of time, that you should be willing to sign a form and put your name down, because you can make a complaint and then you also can talk about it. The complainant can't. The person being investigated can't talk, but the person making the complaint can tell the newspapers. And so we've tried to, and they've tried to change the code, and we fought them. And I think even the county fought them when they wanted to change the code that they could take anonymous complaints. And in our code, it says that they can self-initiate a complaint. And that was left in the code because Mark Bannon at the time, he said, well, if we're investigating a town and we come across something in our investigation, a signed complaint, we go into an investigation, we need to self-initiate a complaint. So we left it in there, and they said that they would not take anonymous tips. And then 2 years ago, Christie at one of our ethics trainings said that they will take anonymous tips. So there was a big blow up. People were upset. People were concerned because we've had situations like in Delray, we've had people, they signed a complaint, they lost their position, they lost their job. 2 years later, they're vindicated, but that did them absolutely no good. And they couldn't get reelected. So we felt that if you're going to take a chance of ruining somebody's life, you should be willing to sign a piece of paper. That's all we ask. And we did allow the Commission on Ethics to still self-initiate complaints. That's in there. This is, I admit, it's a little bit of an overreaction, but it's covering a lot of the problems that we had foreseen. People don't understand, if you're not elected, how easy. There's multiple agencies ready to investigate you. And it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter if you're running for election, you can lose on something that is so untrue. So that's why we felt that it was necessary for we have no problem, anybody wants to complain about anything, they should sign for it. So that's why we've had concerns for more than a decade with that. Now, this is preempting the Commission on Ethics and going to the state. Why would we have an ethics commission? But I do understand some of the reasoning behind that, having seen what has happened to elected officials that didn't do anything wrong, but had to put up with it.
All right, well, that's it's Senate Bill 7014, if you want to look it up, and it would.
And House Bill 1597.
Yep.
Yeah.
So prohibited from investigating.
I got to go back. Yeah.
So local ethics agencies would be prohibited from investigating any matters based on anonymous or informal information tips or from local media reports, and they would not be allowed to self-initiate complaints.
Well, we don't have a problem with that. Yeah, I mean, I would think, I don't know. I mean, that's the way that I was given direction for a decade. Because the state, if you're gonna come after somebody on the state, you have to sign a piece of paper. The state does not take any anonymous complaints.
For code enforcement either.
But not anymore. Yeah. Hey, buddy.
Hi, I just have two quick questions. The first one, with sovereign immunity, is there a number that they're talking about? Because we talked in our committee about, what to do, and is there a number that they're coming up with?
So it's 200, 300 now, and it would go to 400 and 400 individual, 600 incident.
So they dropped like last year was like $1 million.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's ridiculous. And, we after seeing that, like, we kind of said, look, we understand it's been a long time. So let's make that reasonable. So that's might be as reasonable as we get on that.
Okay. And thanks for doing this. And I can't believe, you run down these things so efficiently. The sleeping in public places, I'm hearing from a lot of constituents saying, yay, we finally can kick the people out of the park. Number one, I mean, what does it really mean? And number two, won't it instantly be challenged constitutionally before anybody can act on it?
Like many of the bills, probably so. I see that Kasey is on. I don't know whether she's going to be able to unmute or not, but she's been following that really closely. Kasey, do you want to talk a little bit about that if you can?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ed, and apologies everybody for not being on camera. I've been walking through airports this morning, trying to get back to Tallahassee after our update yesterday. With regard to the public sleeping legislation, there's been some amendments that have been added on, so I'll get as close to where it's at right now as possible. But essentially, it says that you can't allow anybody to sleep or camp in a place that is public that you own if they do not have a permit. If you are allowed as a municipality or as a county to designate a location for which people are allowed to sleep and camp without a permit, but it has to meet certain requirements as verified by the Department of Children and Families. Those requirements involve everything from meeting minimum sanitation levels to providing access to behavioral health and substance use services and resources, those sorts of things. So that's kind of where it's at. One of the scarier parts, I think, for some local governments is that included in the bill, there is a provision where a resident or a business owner can file civil action against you if you allow people who don't have a permit to public sleep or camp and they're causing a disruption to residences surrounding or to businesses surrounding. So I think that's one of the major concerns that a lot of local governments have had because of just enforcement logistics. But the bill is moving along and it's been amended. So we'll see kind of what pressure is placed in what places to make those changes. But we've been monitoring it very closely. As you all know, it will have significant impacts to us.
Yeah, so that would actually empower us to go into the parks and say, you can't stay here, because now we can't do that.
Correct. That's what it seems like it's aiming to do, is to give tools to local governments to no longer allow sleeping in certain areas. But there are still other provisions that they're working through.
Okay, thank you so much. That's it. Commissioner, thanks for having this. This is very helpful.
Yeah, happy to do it. I just, going back in it's interesting, Ed, you described it as ethics agencies, so it's beyond just the IG. It would encompass then the Ethics Commission as well. Is that how they're defining it?
The term they use is ethics agencies, yes.
Do they define it anywhere? I can go look up the bill.
Yeah,
I'm not going to make you do that. And as to the sleeping in public places, because we've got, and I can't remember the name of the decision, but the Miami, I think it's Miami or it's Santa Monica. It's one of the two, I think, where the Supreme Court ruled that you can't arrest somebody unless you offer them a place. You know, somebody who's homeless. I assume that then is going to go back into litigation if as municipalities and counties start to enforce, or they would have to, because it sounds like they're required to enforce by the state. And are there any resources available that are in that bill as well?
I can chime in here, Ed. I know that when Governor DeSantis did his press conference down in Miami Beach on this issue a few days ago, he specified that we would see increased funding for mental health and substance abuse. He did not say that was going to be included in this bill, and I haven't seen in the most recent form any appropriations tied to that specific section. As far as your litigation question, I would assume that if this bill is passed and signed, it will be challenged in court in Florida and will be waiting a few years. But that's just my expert analysis, not being a constitutional attorney.
All right.
And that
One thing too, I wanted to just clarify, so I I still have a job after this call, but I just wanted to clarify that if the league has consistently felt that, if somebody tweets some information out on social media, that shouldn't be a reason to investigate. That's where we've had the problem, but in no way do we want to give our Commission on Ethics to the state. That has never been ever on the table or our intent. We do believe in what we're doing, and we believe we have the best, maybe in the country, but at least in the state. If you look at what we have, it's great when you take the lobbying and I don't need to go on, but we have a very, very good system. And I don't want people to misunderstand the nuance of that little difference, meaning we don't want the Commission on Ethics or the Inspector General. We believe in both and think they're great. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. All right. Well, are there any other questions for Kasey or Ed? So we've got this recorded, Mayor Lithgow. We recorded this session, so we'll make it available afterwards so you can get an update on everything that was covered regarding a legislative update. And anyone else who wasn't able to make the call today. With that, I would just want to say I want to thank Ed and Kasey for making yourselves available, for sharing your infinite knowledge and wisdom on what's happening with us. And I want to thank my staff and for those who were able to make the call today for putting this all together. I find it really helpful. And just before we close, just open up the floor if there's any questions or anything that either myself or anyone else can answer. Happy to try and do that now as well.
Even if
just,
it doesn't pertain to legislative affairs, is everything good in Lake Worth? Anything that we need to know, Mayor?
Everything's perfect in Lake Worth Beach. We have no issues. We solve all the problems and life is just a dream.
Tracy,
Yeah.
everything good in Haverhill? Anything that you need our help with?
Things good in Haverhill.
Good, glad to hear it.
Thank you.
Mayor Lithgow, Karen, everything good in Lantana?
Everything is wonderful in Lantana, the little gem on the ocean. Sorry I was late. My other job caught me up, so I'm going to have to listen to the recording.
The one thing I'm hoping, the Gulfstream PACE loan is moving along. We talked about that last week.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any issues on that because the issue we've been having is on the residential side with I think there's one entity and Ed or Kasey, you want to just do a really quick update on PACE?
Yep, I've been working on that issue all session. So the Property Assessed Clean Energy Bill is ready on the Senate side and is on the special order calendar. So that will be heard today, actually. It includes the clarification that PACE providers operating in a county or city's jurisdiction have to abide by the ordinances set out by that city or county. You may recall there was an issue with one specific PACE provider who decided they could do whatever they wanted because they were a local government. And so this language would actually fix that issue as it moves forward in the Senate. The bill also does expand PACE and the qualifying improvements, and it also includes another provision that includes a bunch of consumer protections that are consistent with Palm Beach County's current ordinance. So all in all, a lot of the sentiment amongst local governments has been that the bill is in a good spot right now. Some don't love every aspect of it, but that bill is ready to be heard on the Senate side this week and will be sent over next week to the House.
That's what's been holding up the residential PACE here in the county.
Correct.
So, All right, other than that, I'm not seeing anything else. So I want to thank everybody once again, and we'll be putting together another meeting, and it'll be after session. I'm sure at some point we'll get an update on that as well, but look forward to, if I don't see you sooner, we'll see you next quarter. Have a
Thank you
great
very
day.
much.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Good
day.
meeting.
Thank you. Bye.